Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the 131st Annual Meeting of the Indianapolis Museum of Art. And please welcome to the podium Board of Governors Chair, Mr. Tom Hyatt.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Our first order of business is to thank our piano player for the wonderful... On behalf of all of the members of the Board of Governors of the museum, it's my distinct pleasure to welcome you this afternoon. We've had an extraordinary year at the IMA on many different levels, and I want to thank each of you who are here, who comprise our most loyal and most engaged supporters, for your interest as well as your concern and your patience. Few institutions survive for 131 years. Like the IMA, those that do survive and prosper must evolve along the way to stay relevant to their audiences and also to remain financially viable. The IMA has arrived at a major inflection point. As you know, the members of the board and the senior leadership team have recently implemented several key changes which we believe will help ensure the future of this remarkable institution. To those of you who have felt frustrated or been inconvenienced by these changes, I want to apologize on behalf of the board. In hindsight, our communications about these changes should have been better. Simultaneously, however, I want to thank the Board of Governors and the members of the senior staff of the IMA for their willingness to face the challenges which confront this institution and to suggest and identify solutions and make difficult decisions. It's a particular honor and pleasure for me to serve with so many dynamic, frankly, intelligent, and committed leaders who care a lot about this institution and who are deeply committed to its future. Connie, if I may show the next slide. This is the Board of Governors. I'm sorry. This is the name. This slide shows the names of all the members of the community, including former board members, community leaders who serve on our board committees, as well as current board members. And it's truly a remarkable indication of the depth of leadership that this institution has to draw on in our community. Thank you to all of those individuals who have helped us during the past year. I'd like to draw your attention to the slate of officers who will be serving the institution in the fiscal year, which is about to begin. These officers are on a 2-year cycle, and so at this meeting we won't need to formally elect them. I would also like to recognize those individuals who have served the IMAs as chairs of board committees, and you can see their names here. As I mentioned, we are really truly blessed to have so many thoughtful and experienced leaders in our community serve the museum in this capacity. Thank you. These are the heads of the many affiliate groups which support the IMA, and those terms of office are usually for a year, and many of those will be changing here also as the fiscal year changes. Thank you. Before I welcome Maria to the podium, I'd like to particularly single out the past and current board members and life trustees who've given and continue to give so much to this institution. Well, all those of you who fall into that category, current board members, prospective board members, as well as life trustees, please stand. And former board members, of course. Now I'd like to welcome Maria Rose, the chair of our Nominating and Governance Committee. Maria?
Thank you, Tom. Good evening, everyone. Our first order of business is to acknowledge and thank our 3 outgoing Board of Governors. They are June McCormack, Bradley Chambers, and Derica Rice. All of 3 have made immeasurable contributions to the IMA, have provided superior counsel, and have spent an enormous amount of their personal time making sure that the IMA stays on course with its vision. In particular, June was the chair of our board for 2 years, and under her guidance, the IMA flourished. So thank you to June, Bradley, and Derica. So we'd like to nominate the following governors whose terms of office expire at today's meeting to succeed themselves for a 3-year term to expire at the annual meeting of the corporation in May 2018. They are Agatha Barclay, Mary Claire Broadbent, Benjamin Picard, and me, Maria Rose. The nominating committee would also like to nominate the following 8 individuals to be elected as governors of the IMA for 3-year terms to expire at the annual meeting in May 2018. David Barrett. David is president and CEO of Gene B. Glick Company, one of the largest privately held real estate management and development firms in the United States. He is also the president, CEO, and director of the Glick Family Foundation. He serves on the board of directors for the Indy Chamber and was a founding board member of Indianapolis Cultural Train, Inc., among other volunteer affiliations. Suzanne McAllister. Suzanne has been involved with the IMA since 1995, most recently as president of the Alliance since 2013. She is a 22-year broadcasting veteran and is currently the executive producer and host of Full Circle, airing nationally on the LeSee Broadcasting Network. Shirley M. Muller, MD. Shirley is the president and CEO of My Money MD, LLC. She writes a weekly column for Physicians Monthly Digest and has authored over 50 scientific papers. She has been involved with the IMA since 1986 and is a member of the Asian Art Society and serves on the Design Arts Society Board and the Collections Committee. Robin Nelson Rice. Robin has been involved with the IMA since 2006. She has worked for AT&T and Eli Lilly and Company in various marketing roles. She is a member of the advisory board for the Women's Fund of Central Indiana and has served on the Board of Trustees at the Orchard School. Dorrit Paul. Dorrit has been involved with the IMA for 45 years. She has served as a docent and has been a member of the IMA's Founders Society, Collections Committee, Alliance, Contemporary Art Society, Design Art Society, and Fashion Arts Society, so clearly knows this place better than most. She is affiliated with several organizations in the city, including the Heron School of Art and Design and Indianapolis Arts Center. Ian Rupert. Ian is a vice president and investment specialist for J.P. Morgan's private bank and has been a member of the IMA since 2008. He also serves on the board of directors and executive committee for the Indianapolis Animal Care and Control Foundation. Rachel Simon. Rachel is an artist, a community leader, a philanthropist, and a private investor. She serves on the board of directors of the Indiana Pacers Foundation, the Herbert Simon Family Foundation, Global Green USA, and various other affiliations. Daniel M. Skavronsky, MD, PhD. Daniel is Senior Vice President, Clinical and Product Development at Eli Lilly and Company. He is a leader of Lilly's Medicines Development Unit and serves as chairman of Avid Radiopharmaceuticals, which he founded in late 2004. I move that the nominees' names for re-election as governors for a 3-year term to expire at the annual meeting in 2018 be reelected. And I move that the aforementioned nominees to fill vacancies on the Board of Governors be elected for 3-year terms to expire at the annual meeting in May 2018. Please note that only members of the Board of Governors and Life Trustees are eligible to vote. May I have a second? Thank you. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. All those against, please signify by raising your hand. Excellent. The motion has carried. I would ask that the re-elected governors and newly elected governors, along with all officers, stand now and be recognized.
Thank you so much, Mario. As many of you know, over the past decade, expenses at the IMA have significantly outstripped revenue and led to overspending of our endowment. Although there is still much to be done, we have made significant progress financially. And to give you an update, I'd like to invite my friend, Matt Gutwein, who chairs the Finance Committee, to update you on where we stand. Matt, thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Tom, and it's nice to see everyone this evening. First, I would like to thank my fellow members of the Finance Committee for their terrific work, and I'd also particularly like to thank Jerry Wise, the spectacular CFO of the IMA, for his great work with the Finance Committee. Those of us in the Finance Committee look at a lot of numbers, but the number that we focus on the most is the draw on the IMA's endowment. 3 years ago, the board set as a goal for the IMA to reduce the draw on the endowment to 5.5% by the fiscal year 2017. I am pleased to report today that at our board meeting just a few hours ago, the board adopted the budget for 2016, which provides for an endowment draw of 5.49% that year. In other words, we've done better than our goal and done so a year early. This year, 2015, our draw on the endowment is at 5.99%, which is also better than our goal and also ahead of schedule. The result of that means that we will have $1 million less to not take out of the draw that we can spend on fantastic programming and experiences for our audiences. Let me now turn to a few operating highlights from fiscal year 2015. For 2015, the IMA is on pace to beat its budget by approximately $500,000. Annual membership revenue is tracking at approximately 8% better than budget and is forecast to improve by 15% in fiscal year 2016, largely as a result of the new admissions policy for the museum. In addition, the IMA's general admission policy is forecast to improve the annual earned revenue by $1.5 million in 2016. Continued investment in new and exciting program at the IMA is expected to increase earned revenue by 17% this year and even more in 2016. And the IMA has continued to do an exceptional job at restraining its expenses. Let me now turn to a few comments about the endowment. The IMA has continued to benefit from the improved investment performance of the endowment. In the most current fiscal year, 2015, the corpus of the endowment has increased by approximately $6 million, and that is after taking $20 million out for annual expenses of the endowment. This is a result of extremely strong growth of 6.3% return on investment of the endowment and a spend rate of less than 6%. In 2016, we're continuing to forecast a rate that I've just mentioned of 5.49%. And so we are making very good and steady progress with the endowment and the fiscal prudence of the museum. And finally, let me make just a few comments about the IMA's debt. Although we are doing very well fiscally, the IMA does have a substantial amount of debt. Currently, that debt is just a little bit more than $120 million. The annual cost of debt service to service that $120 million debt is $3.5 million a year. For the first time, we are actually paying down principal on that debt, and this year, for example, we've made $2 million in reductions in principal. So while we are making great progress fiscally, we still have challenges ahead of us, particularly in the area of our debt. And so that concludes my financial report. I believe it is a strong report, and we greatly appreciate all of the support of all of you in our entire community to enable us to make this progress. And now it is my pleasure to return to the podium our chairman, Tom Hyatt.
Besides making great strides financially, we've also worked diligently to engage more personally with our guests through dynamic programming, and by laying the groundwork to elevate our upper campus to the stature of a major public garden in order to broaden our audience. To lead this effort, we hired Charles Venable 2.5 years ago. On behalf of the board, I'd like to take a moment to thank Charles for his dedication and for his thoughtful, engaged leadership. Personally, I can't think of anyone more qualified to guide this large and complex institution at this time. He has built a strong leadership team, cultivated important new relationships with donors and collectors, and served as an enthusiastic and tireless ambassador for our museum in meetings across the country. For all of us who love this institution, we are fortunate that it is the focus of Charles' energies, and we are the beneficiaries of his vision and his leadership. Please join me in thanking Charles. He'll tell you about the highlights of the past year and give you a preview of things to come.
Thank you very much, Tom, for those kind words. To start with, I certainly want to say I am so honored, certainly to have been chosen 2.5 years ago, and just to be here in front of you today. The board has been extraordinary over the last 2.5 years, as has our members and our supporters, to do a lot of difficult things, but also to do a lot of really wonderful, joyous things. So it's my great, great pleasure to be here today. One of the things that was the highlight of our board meeting that happened exactly about an hour and a half ago before this meeting was that the board approved a new strategic plan. The last strategic plan for this institution was done in 2010, and so it sunsets at this very meeting. And so we have been working for the last almost 2 years, first under the board leadership of June McCormick, our last board chair, and now under the leadership of Tom Hyatt, along with a vision committee to begin with, then the executive committee of the board, which also included a number of staff members along the way. So it's my great pleasure, after 2 years of work, to be able to share with you a bit of an overview of the strategic plan, and then probably at our next meeting next year and along the way, we'll be able to talk to you about many of the details that this plan will lead to. One of the things, though, I want you to notice on this slide is, unlike our last plan, which was for 5 years, we've worked on scoping out a general structure for the next 10 years at the IMA, from 2015 until 2025. The mission of the IMA has always been, from 1883, a mission of service to this community, a mission of collecting great art, of doing wonderful educational activities, and increasingly, once we moved here in the 1970s, also to have a major program in horticulture and in nature. I did take the liberty of asking our archives to go back and pull all the mission statements of the IMA since 1883. That's a very interesting exercise for a very old institution. We've had about 10 different missions. However, every one of them have at its core the missions of education and serving this community and being the very best that we can be in our expertise of art and nature. And so provide exceptional experiences to enrich lives through engagement with art and nature is our simple and straightforward mission. Using the values of stewardship, service, and excellence. The core objectives for this program going forward are only 3. There will be many subpoints beyond this, but the board and the staff really in this strategic plan wanted to focus on things that all of our energy and our resources can go towards, that are prioritized above other things, and that we think we can actually accomplish over the next 5 to 10 years. And they are, in my opinion, and the board's opinion, very strong and lofty goals. The first, to provide exceptional experiences that leverage all of the IMA's strengths, build attendance and membership for this institution, and improve quality of life in Indiana. Secondly, achieve institutional leadership by attracting and developing exceptional talent. Actively engage with visitors and residents in our community and in our region. And of course, thirdly, to ensure the IMA's fiscal future by developing a sustainable business model that thrives on an endowment draw rate of 5% or less. In advance of passing that board, the strategic plan today, our board also knew that for the last year we needed to make some decisions and put in place some basic things that would make this strategic plan successful. And I want to share a few of those with you today. In terms of laying the groundwork for enhancing the visitor experience, as well as, I'll get to in a second, sustainable practices for ensuring the financial wealth of this institution, there are a couple of key things. One, as Tom mentioned, is really to elevate the level of our gardens and reserve them for pedestrians. Our garden development is something that we've been doing for a long time. The first master plan for the gardens was done in the 1980s, only a short time after we moved here to this property in the late 1960s and early 70s and built this the first of our wonderful buildings here. And it's something that we're ready now after restoring the Lily House, Old Fields, and the original gardens here to really take to the next level, which I think, as the board does, can really be something that is an engine for attracting more people to this great site and to broadening our audience. So to begin with, we have already begun enhancing our landscaping. Some of you have probably seen at-work signs all over the property since late last fall, and our horticultural staff has been extraordinary in working on enhancing our landscaping and plant collection here, which they will continue to do. We've added new sidewalks and benches. So at this time, I fully believe that all of those amenities that were planned for the 2005 and 6 expansion, but some of them were engineered out of the budget for lack of funds at that time, have all now been put in place, including the opening of our pedestrian gates at Michigan Road and on 38th Street. We've added a new garden tram to our property. Some of you, it started running a couple of weeks ago, so I hope some of you have had the ability to enjoy that. It is a fabulous tour of the property, going from the original history of this site, being agricultural property, all the way up to one of the leading museums and hopefully one of the leading gardens going forward in the country, as well as a wonderful art and nature park. We've done new signage. There's still more signage to come. Signage, unfortunately, was delayed when we actually started some of our new policies in early April. So I, again, would like to say I apologize if some of you visitors found that frustrating because some of our signs weren't in place as of last week. I think most of them are. We still have a few very large signs that you will see shortly, particularly on 38th, our interest on 38th Street, as well as the front door to the Ephraimson Pavilion, and also at the garden entrance by Deer Zinc. We've also improved our guest services. We have every member of our staff going through a major guest services training regimen right now. We've also improved and, in fact, bought an entirely new e-commerce system. We had certainly listened to our complaints of our visitors and our members saying it's very hard to buy online tickets and do other things like that through our website. So a brand new system has really been a godsend as we're selling tickets with our wonderful automobile design show now and general admission tickets here at the museum. So I hope those of you who like to do that online through the internet will experience a really good system. However, if you have glitches, please don't hesitate to call the museum. We're learning from our visitors and want to improve that going forward as well. Last year at the annual meeting, we spent most of our time talking about all the new public programming that we were going to put forward. Much of that is underway, and that continues right now. And if you've been here in the evening, indoors or out, you know we have a lot of programming indoor or out. Our family days and community days have been very, very successful here at the museum. Under things that we needed to do to make sure that we were sustainable going forward, based on the information and comments you heard from Matt Gutwein and also from Tom Hyatt, on April 7th, though it was announced in December after the December board meeting and the unanimous vote to put these policies in place, on April 7th is when we actually started this, and so asking our visitors, except those who go to the park, which is, of course, has another entrance to it as well as is free as it has been before. We put in place a single point of entry policy so that we can greet, we can counsel, but actually I should have put on here, and it's more important, we can engage with our guests, which we have not been able to do. We know that many guests coming to this institution, we A, didn't know they were here, and B, had no way to really just talk to them as they came and enjoyed the property. Also, the board voted in December, and we instituted in early April a return to the general admission policy that included free parking and free exhibition entrance to encourage membership growth. That was also something when we did surveys of our members and non-members, it was one of the things they didn't like was having to take their wallet out to pay to park, to pay to come to a special show, and other things multiple times as opposed to just one ticket. The goal of which, of course, is to get you to be a member, to join the family of the IMA, and looking across this room, I certainly know that almost all of you are already members of the IMA. We've also put in place a good number of free days throughout the year, as well as Thursday evenings, which are free. For example, yesterday was free. We had a lot of wonderful kids and families and individuals here yesterday when we were celebrating with the rest of the United States a National Museum Day, where other museums across the country were also free. We have put in place free access program for Marion County students who come here on public school tours. And so that is something that we're very, very pleased to do with as many of about 15,000 school children coming on organized school tours to the IMA a year. We've also, as we announced earlier, we actually did it earlier last year, we joined the statewide access program for low-income families to ensure access for those who cannot afford an $18 ticket or the price of admission. And we are very pleased to see those families coming to the IMA. We are also signing people up at our front desk so that they can access not just us, but access 8 other institutions across the city and to some degree statewide. Here's a map that I wanted to make sure to show. If there was anything in our communications that we started in December, the very day after our board voted unanimously to put these changes into place here at the IMA, we probably should have sent out a map. And again, I apologize for not doing that. We thought that our first press release would be clear. However, clearly, what we didn't point out is what exactly a one-entry program meant. Coming through, except for the park, coming on to the museum and into our gardens through the great Ephraimson Pavilion is something that clearly requires us to limit access through other gates and entrances on the property. And so all of you are most of you very good users of the institution, come here frequently, so none of this map is a surprise to you. You see the very large museum building in the lower right-hand corner with the giant word museum on it. So we're now asking individuals to come in that oval section, and then we've been created. There's still a lot more work to do it right outside of Toby tonight. There is basically the garden path, much of which is completed. There's still some other things to do there to make it even better, to get you very quickly from the welcome desk back here and to this part of the building and out into your gardens for your experience there. And then, of course, the areas that are not shaded over in that kind of bluer green color down along 38th Street and all across the park. That is 3/4 of our property, and there have been no changes there whatsoever. Those are still open and free to the public, and we have been able to improve our signage over the last couple of weeks, and we've had much better response from people coming and saying, oh, I understand what you're trying to do. Thank you for making sure you can get the signage there. I also want to say, I'm sure there's some of you who are bikers in the room. My partner Martin's an avid biker as well. And so those of you who have loved coming in the 42nd Street gate, and many of you in the 38th Street gate, particularly to get over to 38th Street or over to the canal, I know this is an inconvenience. In that respect, it was something that we certainly discussed and in the end decided in order to get this part of our property, the gardens, to where we wanted to be, we really needed to reserve that for pedestrians and therefore automobiles and bikes and all kinds of vehicular traffic are no longer permitted on that particular part of the property. You will hear much more about this as we go forward. We're already beginning a site use plan here that will eventually evolve into a full-blown new master plan for our gardens and also for the park, since those master plans were originally done quite a while ago. To show you the effect that these new policies have had, I'm not going to go through all of this, and I know it's probably a little difficult to read, but I'll paint with a broad brush. And we've only been having our new policies in place for 5-6 weeks here, and this data only goes up to from last week, from the 12th. And so here you can see the effect that the board was hoping to have on our membership growth in particularly. I'm pleased to report that our goal this year was to have 11,500 members by the end of our fiscal year, which is June 30th. And we, right now, are over 12,000 members at the IMA. So that is a goal that we're really proud of. Thank you. Now, that said, we have 800 people rolling off at the end of the month who are already members. So if your membership comes up at the end of the month, I hope you will certainly renew. We obviously love to keep people in the museum family, but we feel pretty confident that we will certainly hit our 11,500 at the end of the year. But we think we'll be above that. And to put that in perspective, at least from what I can tell from our archives, the last time we were well over 12,000 members here was in 1974. When the original building here was brand new at the museum. And it must have been, I assume, the most exciting thing in town to have the new building here at the IMA. So at least with these first 5 weeks of data, we're very pleased about this. One thing I will point out over there in that lower right quadrant, you can see some very high blue bars, and the blue bars are this year, the red bars are last year. So some of these statistics aren't exactly apples to apples, but those are. That one and the other one in terms of membership sales. We have very good data by day, how many memberships we sell and what people, when we say convert, it means you come in as a non-member and you leave as a member through your visit here. And so the ability that in some of these weeks we are being able to convert as much as 25% of the people that are coming to our front desk is really quite extraordinary. When you look at statistics, like I just looked at the ones for yesterday. Last year we sold 3 memberships on that day yesterday. Here, this year, we sold 33 memberships. So those are very large and important advances that are great for our finances, but they're even more wonderful because it means all those people have become part of the family and we can communicate with them on a daily basis. I also wanted to share with you that the world truly has been reading about the IMA. Again, we have clearly been engaged with individuals who have been frustrated that they couldn't go and pick up their plant as easy as it was last year at the greenhouse, or come in the 42nd Street gate on a bicycle, or walk their dog, and a lot of other things that one was able to do here but now can't, or you have to do it on a different part of the property. But in the big picture for the IMA, it has really been an amazing, amazing year in terms of publicity for this great institution. As you can see here, we've had just shy of 4,000 total news stories about the IMA, 5 of them in international publications around the world, 56 of them in top-tier national media outlets, including USA Today and the Wall Street Journal. We've had 66 stories in trade media outlets. If you're interested in art or design, those are the magazines you love the most. Those are trade publications like Connoisseur and Dwell and Art Daily. And we've also had 372 full stories, either in different types of media, including radio and television, and online and in print. And just to give you a visual about what some of those look like, I'm sure you've read many of these things, but it really has been quite a wonderful spectrum of press that we have gotten around the world, and certainly in our region. And our marketing and communications team has really been hard at work to make sure that we have successful placement and PR like this. We also, just looking back briefly on what we were able to accomplish last year across the spectrum of all we do here at the IMA. Last year, we celebrated the opening of Ellen Lee's wonderful show, Face to Face, on Neo-Impressionism. And after that, these are the major exhibitions that have occurred since our last meeting a year ago. The great Bill Viola video installation, fabulous, maybe the most important video artist of the late 20th century. George O'Keeffe, I'm sure many of you enjoyed. Erwin Wurm, the Austrian contemporary artist, whose main part of the show is in the Ephraim Pavilion. But like tentacles of the octopus, Erwin Wurm's things are all over the building, and people, particularly young people, are greatly enjoying those as they make these, turn themselves into sculpture all over the IMA. A silver show that I curated, Tiffany Gorham in the Height of American Silver, is in the top floor of the Lily House, which has been very successful. Cutting Edge Fashion just opened a couple of weeks ago, so go up and see that if you have time. And then, of course, the Dream Car Show opened on May 3rd. We've also, however, done many things beyond exhibitions. We have been doing a lot of work digitally and with electronics and in other formats in order to make sure that our great art collections and all the scholarly things that we do here get shared as widely as possible. The Miller House Archives, our great campus in Columbus with one of the world's great modern houses on it and landscape designs there. We have digitized the archives, and those are now available through our website, and we've had thousands of scholars use the architects and landscape architects' papers online there. We've also announced and rolled out our new collection web pages. Those have been very, very successful, as we have hundreds of thousands of people who explore our collections who can't necessarily come to Indianapolis to see the art and other things that we do in person. We have a wonderful conservator who actually upstairs in the upper floor of the Clues Pavilion is conserving a painting as you watch as a visitor. That has been extremely interesting, and we're trying, and we'll do even more next year to get all those behind-the-scenes things that we do with art and science out to the public so that people can, A, know that we do that, and more importantly, if they're very science-minded, see that there's something here for them as well as wonderful art. And then we've concluded our great Innovative Museum Leadership Series, which is sponsored by the Lilly Endowment. Fairly recently, some of you might have enjoyed Paul Redmond, the director of Longwood Gardens, who came and talked to us about how that world-class event, it is obviously the image over there on the far right with its famous water fountain displays, how that institution also through the years went from being free and more open physically to one that actually survives, and not just survives, but has over 1 million people a year that come there to enjoy what they do with horticulture. And Mar Dixon, a specialist in the museum industry, she is working with our staff, and she recently did a talk here about bringing the International Museum Next Conference that looks at the future of museums from an international perspective here to Indianapolis, and to be hosted in this very, very room, which will be the first time it ever leaves Europe to come to the United States. It will be coming to Indianapolis, which we're very, very pleased about. Last year, as I said earlier, we spent a lot of our energy at this meeting unveiling the new ArtX series, which is funded by the Ephraimson Family Fund, and we're very thankful for that. The fruits of the labor of our staff and the funding from the Ephraimson Family Fund have really come together in a fabulous way, and we are seeing new audiences and repeat audiences coming to a lot of the programming. These are just a series of some of the major events that we've been doing. I think it was last week we announced, to a very positive response, that we are one of the few art museums that now has an artist in residence program, and No Stranger, which many of you might know and have heard their performances before. For the next year going forward, they will be our in-house performing arts company here at the museum. So you will see that going forward in, I think, a really delightful way. The fact that we're one of the few institutions like ourselves that have a 500-seat full theater here, a 600 and some odd seat amphitheater, as well as a 100 and some odd seat DuBost auditorium, means we're very well positioned to be partnering with groups that do performance arts to broaden the number of broaden the engagement with our audiences beyond the traditional museum experience. So in short, I do think we're really working on having something for everyone, no matter what your background, no matter what your interests are. And I wanted to juxtapose just two very different things that I had the privilege of working on. The first, it will be announced, it has been announced, and it will actually start happening this fall, where the IMA will be the first general art museum in the nation to actually have its own preschool, which we partnered with St. Mary's to be able to do. Yes, I think that's right. Thank you very much. It's really one of the things that our staff has worked very hard on, and it's also one of those things that you'll see us doing many more partnerships within the community. And the thing that's the best about it is half of the children in that preschool will be children who come from families that are living in poverty. So we are working on raising the money for the scholarships for all of those kids who would have never gone to a preschool to be able to come to the IMA, have an extraordinary education, and a great start in life in ways that would have probably been impossible for their families to achieve without the help of St. Mary's and the IMA. On the other end of the spectrum, as we continue to work on improving and broadening the programming for our horticulture and park area, this is a slide of a wonderful event that many of you went to recently. This was a partnership with the Indianapolis Garden Club, in which we are one of the few art museums in the country that also has the space, but also the ability, because of our horticulturalists on staff, to host something like a wonderful flower show here. There'll be more of that going forward. I and many of you love to be able to see plants and buy plants, and we're working on different types of ways and different locations where you'll be able to do that throughout the year going forward as well. I'm pleased to report we also have a few new faces that I wanted to show you because I think all of them are here for the reception this evening, so welcome them. These are people who have joined us since last year's annual meeting. And when I first saw this slide, it immediately dates me because I thought of Charlie's Angels, the show with the invincible killer women who could do anything despite what Charlie told them to do. They were already out there doing their wonderful job. So Kim Gattle, our Deputy Director for Institutional Advancement, is doing a fabulous job. She's been here 6-8 months, something like that. On the other end of that time frame, Dr. Annette Schlagenhoff. She has been here for a good number of years, working in our curatorial with our curatorial colleagues in that department. She specializes first and foremost on doing provenance work, or research on all of our art collection, but she has also now stepped up and been promoted to being curator of special projects, and she is doing a lot of wonderful work, particularly right now overseeing the organization of the Clues Collection catalog that we hope to publish in just a couple of years. And then many of you have had the chance, I'm sure, to meet Dr. Tricia Paik, She came to us last August from the St. Louis Museum of Art and is the person who is doing the wonderful show that I'll talk about in just a moment upstairs, which will open this weekend, but you'll get a sneak preview of it if you would like to tonight. So welcome them when you see them. Also, a few of you have been able to interface with 2 Mellon curators at large. A number of years ago, we were given $1 million+ by the Andrew Mellon Foundation in New York in order to bring in scholars to Indianapolis, and particularly to the IMA, to work on areas of our collections where we do not have full curatorial representation right now. So Dr. Christian Feast, he's European, and he used to be the director of the Vienna Museum of Ethnography. He is working on our Native American Indian collection, which many of you would say, well, you don't have much of a Native American Indian collection. But we actually have 600 or 700 objects that he's working on, most of which at the moment are in storage. So he's evaluating that collection for us. And recently we partnered with the Eiteljorg for him to give a lecture there. And we had all of our audiences gather at the Eiteljorg where he could also talk about their collections. Dr. Costa Patrides from the Cleveland Museum of Art. He's sort of on loan, like a good baseball player to us at the moment. And he is working on our African collection, doing research and also helping us evaluate that collection. They will be here through this summer. And then next year, for 2016, we will be appointing, we hope, a Mellon curator at large in American art, where we also at this moment don't have a full-time curator. The statistics of this institution are probably pretty well known to you, but it always amazes me when I come to this meeting and ask our staff to come up with the numbers of just the raw data is so impressive, much less the quality of the objects coming into this collection and the quality and generosity of this institution as we send it out across the world, sharing with others. Since our last meeting, we acquired 1,430 works of art. For the IMA. We have a very busy collections committee that meets through the years to peruse all of these before they come into the museum. We made 31 major national and international loans from our collection to important exhibitions around the world. We've also made a huge effort as we rolled out our new web pages for our collection to have over 24,000 works of art digitized and put online so that people around the world can actually do research on our collection and can also just enjoy it for the sheer beauty that our collections can bring to you as gorgeous works of art. And then we've also, in one way or the other, from short pieces on the webs and blogs all the way to very serious scholar publications, we had 3,820 of our works of art published one way or the other in the last year here. Coming up, the sneak preview for the coming year. I hope many of you have already been to the Dreams Cars exhibition that opened on May 3rd, and it has been very well received in the press as well as by the public. I intentionally am not showing you an image of one of Richard Wentworth's installation. That is something that Tricia is working on in contemporary art. But I think his work, if you know what it looks like, don't tell anybody in this room tonight, because I think you'll be just blown away at how seductive and fun and interesting his work will be when that installation opens in September. Gustav Baumann, one of Indiana's greatest artists, major American printmaker, and to some degree a painter who started off in his career really in southern Indiana and then moved on to do these fabulous images, and you see one of them here of the western part of the United States. Marty Krause, our curator of works on paper, is one of the world's best experts on this artist, and we will be doing a major show largely drawn from our own wonderful holdings of his work, and that will open this fall in October. And then for something new, Mark Zalonis and his staff, particularly Sue in the greenhouse, we've been talking for a while, how can we make more of our visitors know of the great treasure of the greenhouse, but particularly some of the educational things that we're doing in the plants that we collect for our greenhouse. Particularly our orchids that were loved by Madeline Elder, whose name is on our greenhouses. So we are now thinking we will join several major botanical gardens that already do this, and we will try to do an orchid show in the winter here that I think you will be, those of you who are gardeners who can't do very much in January or February will be able to come and see extraordinary plants that have a great historic connection to what we have done here for a long time in our greenhouses at the IMA. So for tonight at 6:30, and we are almost there. You will be able to meet the artist, Michelle Grabner. She works in Chicago, though she's had shows at numbers of museums, but we, the IMA, are giving her her first major exhibition in a general large art museum. So she's very pleased to be here. I had a sneak preview of the show yesterday. It looks totally terrific. And she will be here, has offered to give tours exactly at 6:30. And so Tricia and the artist will meet you outside. Oh, there you go. That's got to be Tricia. I hear the voice. Oh, they're in the balcony where I'm not looking up there. So they will be out front. If you want to do that, you'll go up to the June McCormick Forefront Galleries to get a sneak preview, because it doesn't officially open to the public until the 22nd, I believe. And then also, I did want to say, I'm sure there are some of you that are going to have questions of us or Tom or any of our other boards. We have a reception following. We'll be happy. We're all going to stay. We'll be happy to take individual questions from anybody about anything you've heard tonight. So please do interface with us. We're happy to do that. And I would like to say two things, which is I want to give you all a round of applause because of the great support we have at the IMA. And then I also want to show you a little snippet to give you an idea about what our marketing is going to be like as we go forward with our new strategic plan and a new marketing plan for this great institution. So if you'll hold on for 2 seconds, we'll have somebody smarter than I have to do this.